if they were doing a 90s boy band reunion. Alex Armstrong. Here's how this show works. We each outline our argument about a chosen topic, then everyone piles in and explains why that's a load of malarkey, as Joe Biden would say. Don't forget to send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay. And we want all your questions for our Ask the Five segment, when you get to put us all on the spot. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday Night News with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you very much, and good evening to you from a very blue news studio tonight. I'm Sam Francis. The top story from the newsroom: Reform UK has withdrawn support for 3 election candidates accused of using racist comments to describe migrants. Edward Oakenfold, Robert Lomas and Leslie Lilly will remain on the ballot paper on July the 4th, but are no longer endorsed by the party. Meanwhile, a Reform campaigner who was recorded using a racist slur against the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, admits he's been a total fool. Reform UK, though, has now reported Channel 4 to the elections watchdog, accusing the broadcaster of election interfering. It claims the undercover news piece was a set-up, though the network is standing by its undercover footage. Well, as we've been hearing, celebrities have been endorsing Labour tonight, with Sir Elton John the latest to join the campaign. Sir Keir Starmer's been speaking in the last few moments to activists in Westminster tonight as Labour's campaign reaches its final weekend. You can see there the closing segments of that press conference that we've just heard from. Around 300 Labour supporters gathered in central London in Westminster tonight. And earlier, the Labour leader told supporters that he wants a clear mandate for change if he gets into power, and promised to serve the country with purpose. And earlier, Sir Keir Starmer also pledged to introduce a new Armed Forces Commissioner and to lead a government of service if Labour is elected. It comes as Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey insists that Labour is now the natural party of defence. However, Sir Keir Starmer has refused to commit to a 2.5% defence spend.
We do want to get to 2.5%, and it's really important that that's consistent with fiscal rules. The first thing we'll do is carry out a strategic review of resources, of capability, to make sure that the money we are spending is spent effectively on the things that we need. But today is Armed Forces Day, so it is the opportunity to say thank you to all of those who are serving and have served, and to remember the contribution that they have made to our country.
The Prime Minister has also been paying tribute to the armed forces on Armed Forces Day today. He hailed the duty, the dedication and selfless personal sacrifice of servicemen and women. Rishi Sunak claimed that his is the only party to meet the Help for Heroes Veterans Pledge. That pledge requires parties to commit to keeping the Office for Veterans Affairs, commissioning an independent review of the medical discharge and processing veterans for their benefits and compensation that they deserve. Well, Security Minister Tom Tugendhat told us that the Armed Forces Day is more than just one day a year.
Armed Forces Day, for those of us who are veterans, isn't just one day a year. We live with our service, good and bad, throughout the year. And for some of us, that can bring back painful memories, but it can also bring back huge moments of pride of having served alongside some of the best that our country has to offer. Look at the record. Look at what Johnny Mercer has achieved as the Minister for Veterans Affairs, and look at what the Prime Minister has achieved in creating that cabinet position for Veterans Affairs. We've got Op Resolute and Op Courage that help veterans who may be finding life just a little bit difficult.
Tom Tugendhat there speaking to us earlier. Well, the Lib Dems have also had their say. The leader, Sir Ed Davey, says his party want to increase the number of troops in the army.
Well, our first priority on Armed Forces Day is to remember our veterans and to say to the Armed Force personnel who are serving at the moment, we want to make sure the way you're treated is much better housing, much better health services, and we want to increase the number of troops in our British Army. They're being cut by 10,000. We would get rid of those cuts, and that's what we do immediately: treat our veterans and our armed force personnel better and invest in our great British Army. In the long term, we want to get to 2.5% of national income spent on defence.
Here and away from the election campaign trail, 2 men who spent time with missing teenager Jay Slater before he disappeared have been ruled out of the police investigation. It's nearly 2 weeks since the 19-year-old went missing on the island of Tenerife. Hikers and locals are among those who've now turned up to support an expanded search effort in the mountainous areas in the north of the island. The prison service says that it doesn't tolerate staff corruption after reports that an officer's been caught on video having sex with an inmate in the cells. It's said to have happened at Wandsworth Jail in South London. The Metropolitan Police say a woman has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. And finally, as we heard from Darren at the top of the hour, Coldplay is set to make history later as the first act to ever headline Glastonbury 5 times when they perform at the festival this evening. The Grammy Award-winning band first played the Pyramid Stage in 2002 and also topped the bill in 2005, 2011 and 2016. Well, tonight they follow on from Dua Lipa, who was the headline act there last night. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with your next update at 7 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night, and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, and I can promise that you're in for a very lively evening. Even Sir Keir Starmer is obviously a huge fan of this show, judging by the way he promptly finished that rally at 6 p.m. on the dot. So thank you, Sir Keir. Let's get up and running. I'm going to kick us off because I've got a major bee in my bonnet with the Democrat Party. I think the Democrats have been gaslighting not just the United States of America, but the Western world, gaslighting us all into believing that President Biden's frailty was never an issue. Well, I think in that debate, and I stayed up for it, and I'm mighty glad I did, actually, it was great telly. I think in this very clip, you'll see that the entire argument the Democrats have made over recent time has been a complete farce.
Continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
I mean, that's a typical Trump line. You can't actually outdo the man when it comes to one-liners. But I say this as someone who massively respects, majorly respects the elderly. Right? There are some members of this panel who think differently. But I would argue that actually, you know, you shouldn't be ruled out because of your age. Age is but a number. But in this case, it's clearly not a number. There's clearly problems with President Biden. But here he was, arguing he's fighting back.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Well, Joe, I hate to break it to you, but the only thing that you do know, mate, is how to read a teleprompter, because that's what he was doing in that so-called comeback speech there. I mean, it's the weakest comeback since the relaunch of one iteration of the Sugar Babes. So I think the United States of America has been lied to. I think that actually President Biden's health is in more serious, dire straits than they've let on. And I think that's incredibly dangerous at this time for the Western world. Who disagrees?
Well, I disagree, Darren, of course.
Oh, there's a surprise.
Because
he's the only old person you do like.
Look, I mean, Camilla Tominey put it this way earlier, that the US has a choice between a man facing a custodial sentence and a man who can't finish a sentence. Now, it's a pretty good way of putting it, and I would rather have somebody who isn't the best debater in the world than somebody who is deeply corrupt and a committed liar facing a whole host of federal charges and has already been convicted of one federal charge, has been found guilty in a civil court of rape of a journalist not the only choice, many decades ago. And the fact is that if you look at the state the US is in, I mean, what we would do for their economic growth, it has been way stronger, 3 times as strong as what we've had in the UK. No, mate.
Absolutely.
3.5 years later, I don't think you can use that excuse.
Yes, you can. The economic policy's been put in place.
Well, in that case, you could just as easily say Trump's was a legacy of Obama, couldn't you, if you want to play that game? They have growth that we we can't imagine. They've had the lowest income workers have had a 12% rise in their salaries. Can you imagine us having that? And that is what Joe Biden is doing.
But Benjamin, it's not about that, is it? It's not about any of that. It's about a man who actually has his finger on the red button that could just destroy the whole world. And he can't...
Is that something in the care home? Or...
He can't remember his own name. It's also very sad.
It is
We're
sad.
sitting here watching a man's mental health and illness play out in public.
Yeah.
His family should take him home.
I agree.
Albie, do you have a problem with Dr. Biden, as in Jill Biden? Because she's been painted as a sort of Lady Macbeth character on social media.
I've got to be honest, I don't really pay very much attention to Jill Biden, to be quite frank.
I don't know how you could miss her on that
She is the
microphone.
President of the United
Well, I know,
States,
but
so
I don't
you
know,
should probably pay closer
I
attention.
don't know. I found Melania more interesting. Melania Trump more interesting. I found Michelle Obama quite interesting. I don't have the same interest for Dr. Jill Biden, though I'm sure she's a great woman. But Benjamin, you talk about the choice being between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, like that is the only option.
Well, that is the choice.
Why couldn't the Democrats pick a new nominee so it's actually someone good versus Donald Trump, so the American people would have a better decision to make at the next election rather than someone who is facing a custodial sentence and someone who can't finish a sentence?
Oh, I mean, I think, you know, if America were functioning healthily, then neither of those men would have been the choice. You know, the idea that we're going, oh, Joe Biden's a bit old, well, the other one's 3 years younger. You know, there isn't a great deal of decision between them. Look, I would want someone called Pete Buttigieg, who's their transport secretary, who's a Harvard...
He's gay.
No, because he's a Harvard-educated veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you might not respect that, Darren, but I do. I think he'd be a fantastic US president. But the idea that the Republicans are now just a cult of a convict is something that you should be far more alarmed by.
And the Democrats are a cult of someone who can't finish a sentence.
Look,
and so are you.
Look, the reality is...
I can finish a sentence.
Sometimes.
I can't finish a sentence in this bloody room, I'll tell you that for sure. But what the problem we have with Joe Biden is that this is a man who supposedly runs the free world, which now is being exposed quite clearly that he doesn't. This is embarrassing. The leader of the free world...
What do you mean
United...
doesn't?
Well, it's quite clear that he is not mentally in charge. You're seeing Jill Biden literally walk him down the steps off of the debate stage. This is embarrassing for the most powerful country in the world. And since he's become president, we've seen what's happened in Israel. We've seen terrorists attack Israel and start a potential third world war in the Middle East. And we've seen,
Sorry, you think
Russia
Hamas was sat there going,
we've sat there with, hang on, Benjamin, let me finish.
Jill's walking him down the stairs, so we're going to invade Israel.
Well, of course, if they have a weak president of the United
smoking?
States, they're going to see the response militarily as weaker, and that's happened with Russia. That's happened with Russia.
Joe Biden's
OK, but then let's take a look at Putin.
Why
As Putin is a dictator, a strong dictator, is going to look at his biggest enemy and go, can I take them out at this point? Can I abuse the position of weakness that they're in when they've got a terrible leader who can't even finish a sentence, let alone walk down the stairs?
I don't think weakness is how quickly you walk down the stairs. Weakness is being
someone... can't finish a sentence,
Weakness
Benjamin.
is being somebody who, when US president, as Donald Trump did, refused to back his own US intelligence
Benjamin,
services.
when we saw the debates yesterday, we watched the
Russia.
debate, and he couldn't even... He go, we beat Medicare. It's like, what did you beat about Medicare?
He
You know, he doesn't even know what he's saying.
You beat it to death.
And yet,
beat it to death.
Bad news,
You beat it to death, actually,
Bad
Joe.
news, Trumpists. The guy is that bad and still beat your bloke by 8 million votes.
Well, we'll see. We'll see, yeah.
I don't think you should count on your chickens just yet. Right, who's going to go next?
I'm going to go next. So, earlier on this week, we heard some absolutely awful racist comments from a reform campaigner made against our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Let's remind ourselves of them just now.
When my two daughters have to see and hear reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry.
I was quite surprised to hear and see that after Rishi Sunak made that quite powerful speech in a pool clip earlier on this week, that actually not many Conservatives came out to back him. I was racking my brains, rolling through Twitter to see if anyone had come out to defend the Prime Minister, and I had a look, and I saw that Suella Braverman yesterday wasn't tweeting about this. Priti Patel yesterday wasn't tweeting about this. Kemi Badenoch yesterday wasn't tweeting about this. And David Cameron yesterday wasn't tweeting about this.
Oh dear.
In fact, the only people to talk about it at all were Michael Gove. James cleverly, to his credit, retweeted a tweet from Giles Watling, and Steve Baker, as well as Julian Smith, made comments in the Prime Minister's favour. So I'm asking, why is it that so few senior Conservatives have come out to call out that the racist comments that were directed against our first British Asian Prime Minister were absolutely appalling, and to call out Nigel Farage's Reform Party for some of their racist candidates and campaigners. 3 of those candidates were in fact had their support withdrawn today because of racist comments they'd made against immigrants. Why isn't the Conservative Party calling this out for what it is? Alex Armstrong.
Well, look, I think it's possibly because the Conservative Party don't want to be seen as hypocrites. Let's not forget that they took Frank Hester's money and didn't apologise for his comments nor return the money. If I were them, I'd probably be pretty quiet about this because you look like you stink of hypocrisy. We could say the same about the Labour Party, who are also standing racist candidates in this election, people who've made racial slurs. The only party that seems to have taken any action is actually Nigel Farage's party, who stood them down in the middle of an election.
Has any candidate, Benjamin, or campaigner that you know of, that we've heard of in the news recently, said something like F-word, P-word about the first British Asian Prime Minister?
No, of course they haven't. And anybody that
On
did...
camera, they haven't.
Well, I have absolutely no doubt that they're not saying that behind a camera either, because you have to be a pretty extreme person to use that. I've never heard that said by anybody in my life of any description, so it's not a normal thing that people say about Rishi Sunak. One of the good things about Rishi Sunak is that I think his race and his religion has played very little part in people's perception of him, which I think is a sign of progress in the country.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you know, I saw the Question Time last night, and a member of the audience put it perfectly when Nigel Farage used his excuse, which was, well, look, it's a start-up party, it's hard to check what everyone's saying and thinking and vet them. Well, someone in the audience said, well, hang on, I know lots of people who've started up businesses recently, and weirdly, they've not hired a slew of racists.
Well, is that the audience member that's planted by the BBC by any chance? Because there was at least 2 of them.
But is it a valid point?
Hang on.
Well, of course it is if it's been planted by the BBC's employees. Are there to read questions out to catch Nigel Farage.
I think, to be fair to Nigel Farage, when he was in UKIP, he was excellent at weeding out these kind of people who will naturally be attracted there. He did the job brilliantly.
There, you hit the nail on the head. Why is it that racists are attracted to Nigel Farage?
I think he has.
Why are racists attracted to the Labour Party? Why are racists attracted to the... Yes, they are. You've got 2 candidates standing. You've got 2 candidates standing that have made racial slurs against white people. The Conservative Party have got one of their biggest donors has made racial slurs against Diane Abbott. Let's not pretend that this isn't an issue that affects every party. We'd be doing an injustice to the party.
I want to drink white tears.
Exactly. Can I just be really, really clear about something? This impacts every single party. Reform are actually coming out in the middle of an election saying, we're going to do something about this. Why has the whip been restored to Diane Abbott? Why is a candidate in the Labour Party being allowed to stand still after making slurs? This is ridiculous.
The Reform Party handles issues of race relations better than any other party?
Well, clearly they do, by all factual evidence, by all circumstantial evidence we presented today, unless anyone can tell me otherwise.
Like the 3 candidates who just
who've been stood down. Absolutely, which is the right thing to do.
Because they were racist.
Those comments were disgusting and they should never be accepted.
Darren, I do just want to ask you a quick question, because there is a lot of talk about the actor, about the person who made the comments in the Channel 4 expose being an actor and it being some sort of conspiracy theory. What do you make of that?
Look, I think that even on his CV, his actor CV that he puts online, it's easily accessible. It says that he does undercover work, and I just thought, oh, come on. You know, you don't have to be the world's biggest
so just to clarify,
wearer to think that there's something going on here.
Just to clarify,
the BBC audience
no, don't move on. I want to ask you a question.
The BBC audience last night was so stacked with lefties. I wonder if it was put together by him.
Look, Darren, so you think, to make this clear, that Channel 4 and Channel 4 News have risked their entire reputation of 40 years...
Channel 4 News is somewhere to the left of Chairman Mao.
True. Quit the silly comments. You think Channel 4 has risked their entire reputation, a massive financial lawsuit, on planting one man in a 7-minute report on the news?
No, I'm not making that accusation whatsoever.
No, you're not, because you'd get sued if you said it, because it's just a conspiracy theory.
The production company have done undercover work like this before.
Can I also say...
But you know what? They've never done it to George Galloway's party.
Well, yes.
They've never done it to Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. They've never done done it to the obnoxious elements that exist in this country.
Do I ever think...
They never did.
Quite right, Darren.
Why didn't they
Quite
do
right,
it?
Darren. And
A Labour Party meeting with Angela Rayner in which there was not a single woman in the room. That, to me, is what you would call misogyny.
And also,
where's that work?
Let's paint the bigger picture here. Reform have had to go through a fake Daily Mail headline that the BBC couldn't even corroborate because this quote from Zelensky doesn't exist. No one can find it anywhere. Yeah. They've had to go through. They've had to go through this. Hang on, let me finish. Yes, that's an absolute lie. That headline is a lie. That headline is a lie, and it's
what you're talking about.
There's a headline from the Daily Mail that says Zelensky basically called Farage a Putin sympathiser, right? Which there is no quote that exists that anywhere to be found. So they've had to go through that. Then they've had to go through this racism claim, which Nigel Farage doesn't have to apologise for. Then they've had to go through a BBC plant, and then they've got to have this undercover thing. There's a collusion by the mainstream media.
Personal responsibility.
Why is Nigel Farage responsible for what someone else said?
Nigel Farage must be
Rishi Sunak didn't apologise for Frank Hester's comments.
Kemi Badenoch did.
Right.
Well, she's not the Prime Minister.
We'll leave that one there. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'm going to read out this statement from Channel 4 themselves. They say, "We strongly stand by our rigorous and duly impartial journalism, which speaks for itself. We met Mr Parker for the first time at Reform UK's headquarters, where he was a Reform Party canvasser. We did not pay the Reform UK canvasser or anyone else in this report. Mr Parker was not known to Channel 4 News and was filmed covertly via the undercover operation." Right. Still to come tonight, should overweight children be weighed before they can ride donkeys at the beach? And is David Lammy right that the Tories are too posh to rule? But next, does the rise in the left in Britain and the right in France mean more migrants will be crossing the English Channel? You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
History lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. They are saying that you should be guilty if you're white and heterosexual. Not using the long words they use, but that's kind of what they're saying.
Yeah, but do you know what? History in this country is concerned with more and has been lived by more white people and more heterosexuals, right? And that's the history. I'll tell you something else, Dawn. This is Russell Group University material here. This is Liverpool. It's a really good university. Mm-hmm. The thing that really got me going apart from this, and I thought it was an AI generation of words input into a system to come up with from something. It's ridiculous. The main issue I have is the verb problematise. I've never heard of that before. Yeah. So they should be prioritising grammar. Let's get first principles back in there firstly.
It's just promoting anti-racism.
It's not, Amy.
It is. Wait. It's just bringing the marginalised voices into the discussion. So
no, what they're saying is look at British history through the optic of
all perspectives. So let's look at it from the perspective of a queer person growing up. Let's look at it from the perspective of somebody from...
But that's not the majority.
When I actually looked at the evidence, it's all about unpacking bias. And you have to admit there has been a white bias in history.
No, there hasn't, because the facts...
From a white perspective...
Amy, the facts are, in history, most people in this country are white and heterosexual.
Of course, but then there's still...
So that's the history.
...voices that deserve to be brought into the discussion as much as the dominant...
Look,
like, that's all decolonising the curriculum is hearing all sides of the argument. Which surely we at GB News love. We celebrate that. That's what we do.
We do, but we're not telling anybody it's bad to be white or it's bad to be...
Exactly.
That is not what...
Amy, it is. It is.
Amy.
The People's Channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain. only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
A very warm welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for all your emails about tonight's topics. Cassandra says, I think the people pulling the strings and really running the country are terrified of Biden standing down as they would lose their power. Someone has written in, how elusive. Have you wondered, has messaged there, and we might all be thinking this, I think. Oh, hang on. They say, are Biden and Trump, with all their contentious issues that go on ad infinitum, the only two people out of about 350 Americans who could run the United States in a dignified and honest manner? And I think that is probably a pretty good point, actually.
Yeah, it is.
There are an awful lot of people, and is this the best they can do? Some are asking that question. Now, though, it's time for our next debate. Which one's going next?
Yeah, I believe it's me, Darren. And it's pretty disturbing stuff we've been hearing over the last few weeks since this general election started. It seems like there's going to be a tsunami of boats coming across the Channel after July the 5th. All of these illegal immigrants are queuing up to come to Britain because they know Keir Starmer's Labour Party is going to be soft on immigration to the max. There is no plan to deter these illegal immigrants, and independent journalists have been going into Calais and they've been speaking to many migrants who might have actually been deterred somewhat by the Rwanda policy. So now we're hearing that they're ready to go. The French police are getting ready to help them cross the Channel with their navy and get them into British waters on and after July the 5th. This is an extremely disturbing bit of information we've been hearing from multiple journalists, and I think it says something about what the world and what illegal migrants think about Keir Starmer's future government. Benjamin, how do you think Keir, what's his policy even on stopping the boats?
Well, Alex, let me ask you, after the Rwanda policy was passed by Parliament, did the number of boats crossing go up or down?
Listen, I don't think it's a great policy. I'm not here to defend it, but
did it go up or did it go down?
If we take the reports that there's going to be an influx, maybe even a 3 times influx of what it is today, what does that say about?
Did it go up or did it go down?
Well, it went up, didn't it? Because the Tories have failed us on
So after the Rwanda policy was passed, the number went up. We've continued to have record numbers. It seems like the only thing that affects the number of people attempting the crossing is poor weather. Everything else, it just continues to rise.
Okay.
So no, I'm going to answer your question. So the idea that you've got, I don't know, Yemeni, refugees waiting in Calais, flicking through the Labour manifesto to check when it's going to be easier. I mean, it's obviously preposterous, right? The fact is that...
So all these reports are lies. All these independent journalists are lying. It's in the Daily Mail, it's in the Telegraph, I think it's even in the Mirror today.
Well, it's in the self-interest of some of those people that want Keir Starmer to be out of government. The Daily Mail's front page is Stop Starmageddon, so I'm not sure I'm going to take their impartiality.
The Mirror?
Well, I don't know if it's been in the Daily Mirror, so I can't tell you if it has or not. But look, the fact is that the Rwanda scheme will only take a couple of hundred people while costing a couple of £100 million to date. Yeah. And so there is a 99% chance that each person that gets to this country under Rwanda wouldn't be refused.
OK.
I think most taxpayers will say that's not bang for your buck.
No, well, Darren, what do you say about this?
Look, you look at the number of migrants that went over to the Republic of Ireland because they were so terrified of being sent to Rwanda that you start to see that it is working.
So why did that happen months before Rwanda had been passed?
Well, that's not what the Irish PM
exactly.
said.
The Irish the Taoiseach of Ireland actually came out and said that it was having a deterrent
it started
effect.
long before it was passed.
So, Benjamin...
Well, why would the migrants say that they're scared of going to Rwanda? Or who do you want that to actually confirm this? Do you want Channel 4 News to say it? Is that the only... Are they gospel? They're the only people that you'll listen to?
They're actors in Calais from Channel 4, obviously.
Benjamin, the reason that the Rwanda plan hasn't worked in any shape or form is because the Labour, the left people, have not allowed it to. They have challenged it in every way. They've delayed it for 18 months. He was never going to get it off the ground, and once the MPs had finished with it, there are the lefty lawyers who are making a mint out of
European ones as well.
They're just going to stop it as well, and then the European Court of Human Rights. More than 200 people can go to Rwanda. They've actually said it can be limitless, but what's going to happen, and you know it, is that they're going to get taken off of the planes by the European Court of Human Rights. So Keir's plan is, I know, we'll crack down on the gangs, just like we've done with drugs, because that's worked so well, hasn't it? Cracking down on the drug dealers has really worked well.
So James Bond, under Keir's policy, is going to be flying over to somewhere in Africa and stopping these gangs. Is that correct?
Look, I think we're getting into a bit of a silly conversation with that comment, Alex, if I may say.
Well, that's what he's saying. He's going to have a command force that goes out and smashes the games.
The question I would quite simply put to either yourself or Benjamin or other people that do not support Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan. Look, I don't think it's the best plan, but it's the plan that we have. I would simply ask you, what would you do instead?
Listen.
And when Rishi Sunak asked Keir Starmer that question in the debate on Thursday, and he said, "What are you going to negotiate with the Ayatollah of Iran some kind of returns agreement
but you know what
for Iranian people that come over here across the channel?" Do you think that's practical, Benjamin?
Well, I mean, for example, one of the things he said, are you going to negotiate with the Taliban? Well, many of the people coming from Afghanistan are entitled to refugee status.
The Ayatollah?
And so, well, I think we have no diplomatic relations with Iran.
So they're not going to, are they?
But there are very few countries like that. And the fact is that, you know, a lot of these people are sitting in hotels that we're paying a fortune for when they're from countries that they have a very little chance of being approved for refugee status. So hiring more staff to fast-track them out of the country is a really good idea.
We approve 80% of these people,
Correct. And when I'll be asked what should we do, I'll tell you what we should do, which is what the British public want us to do, is show a backbone and send these immigrants back to France the same way Ireland's been sending them back to the United Kingdom. We can do this. We should be showing our strength. This would be the ultimate deterrent.
Does anyone on the panel actually believe that it will get better under Labour?
No, I don't.
Yes.
I don't.
I do because
I don't.
The problem with the way that you behave, first of all, the reason we don't have a returns agreement is because you people voted to leave the European Union.
So why does Ireland have it with us?
So you
it is nonsense, Benjamin. That's absolute
that's why Ireland
rubbish.
Can send them back to France and we can't
rubbish.
because we're not part of the
That's just
EU.
weak Conservative government. That's what it is. That's just weak Tory.
You want to pretend?
Well, we're going to take them back to France if we have to.
Why haven't we done that already? If it's
because Rishi Sunak wants to have good relations with the European Union and start cozying up to them. No, I don't care about the European Union. They're their own political entity.
Well, maybe.
Really
I don't care about the
naive.
European Union. I care about Britain. I want our country to do what's right for us first, and then we can worry about what the Europeans think.
We live on a planet with other countries.
Well, they keep sending them to us, Albie. The police are shuffling them over to us, so let's get real.
Logic, because he lives on a planet of his own, right?
We've already given them £500 million. I imagine a lot of viewers are saying, yeah, damn well send them back. Right, still ahead though. Is it fair to weigh overweight children if they fancy a donkey ride on the beach? We'll be getting that take from Benjamin Butterworth. Labour's Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy says the Tories are not the class of people who should be running Britain. I wonder which of us wants to raise that one. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area of low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of Northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they've become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics. Emails are flying in about Channel 4's report on the Reform Party. Christina says, Butterworth needs to do one. We'll end it there. No. Has he seen the rubbish they put on Channel 4? Don't bother with naked attraction, love. You'd never make it.
I did actually take magic mushrooms on Channel 4, which is the only situation in which I think I'd find Alex rational.
Tanya says, well done to Channel 4 for some quality journalism. It's simply ludicrous that people are questioning it, and the conspiracy stuff they are cooking up is frankly laughable.
I agree.
And then a fair few of the emails were saying, Benjamin, shh. So we're going to shh, aren't we? Good boy. Now it's time for our next debate. Who's next?
Which, unfortunately, is me. This week, David Lammy, who could be the Foreign Secretary in a matter of days, spoke to the New Statesman magazine to say that the Tories are the wrong class of people to run Britain. He said that he'd recently been at the Trooping of the Colour event and people like David Cameron were there, and he said they had a sort of fippery, a public school smallness to them. Now, of course, the Prime Minister, for a bit longer at least, Rishi Sunak, is richer than the monarch himself. Him and his wife are thought to be worth more than £600 million. He went to Winchester School, he's worked in the city and then rose to be Chancellor in just a couple of years. So I think David Lammy might have a point. Aren't these toffs just so out of touch that they think not having Sky TV is a burden? Now, Albie, you went to a private school. And you're
I knew it was coming.
And you're a Tory.
And you're
Do
posh.
you not think that this makes it difficult for normal people to identify with them?
What school did Keir Starmer go to?
He went to a grammar school that became private when he was in about his 4th year.
Right, that's exactly the same case as is with my school, and in fact, it's exactly the same case as is with many people who go to private schools now. But of course, Labour withdrew the funded places scheme, which was excellent for social mobility. It meant that people were able to go to good schools if they had talents, and Labour have reduced social mobility there. So my point is that Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer actually went to quite similar types of schools. So I think the idea that there's this huge difference in where Rishi Sunak went to school and where Keir Starmer went to school is pretty ridiculous, considering we both accept that Reigate and Winchester are pretty posh private schools as of 2024.
Well, I mean, I'm going to point out, for factual basis, first of all, it's a state school when he went there, and it was 40 years ago. So the Reigate school that's a posh school now was not the same when he was a boy, given that he's
Reigate,
61 years old.
The posh place in Surrey wasn't a posh school 40 years ago.
Correct.
Reigate.
It wasn't even a private school, OK? And
Reigate wasn't posh 40
His
years
dad
ago.
was a toolmaker and his mother was a nurse.
His dad was a toolmaker? No way,
His dad
really?
His dad did not own the factory.
His dad was a toolmaker. Did anyone know that?
His dad did not own the factory. That's just something that hard lefties claim on the internet. And there's nothing wrong with owning factories. But do you not understand that a lot of people are really struggling, middle-class people, let alone people who are the kids of toolmakers, and they look at these people, David Cameron, you know, there are more people that went to Eton than any other school in the cabinet. I mean, that's absurd.
Where did Tony Blair go to school?
No, let a woman speak, Albie.
This is just the lack of aspiration that Labour have, that they think everybody has to be common like them, not posh, rather than saying, like my mother did when I grew up in the East End of London, latchkey kid, went to the local comp where the police were there every night. She just said to me, work hard, make things better, get out of here. We should be aspiring to these people.
Correct.
We should be aspiring for our children to go to private school, which is exactly what I did with my son. Me having been through that comprehensive, I said, no way is my child doing that. He went to private school. He's not too posh, I promised you.
So I assume by that logic, which I don't disagree with in principle, that you celebrate Angela Rayner becoming Deputy Prime Minister. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I hear too many people, and I think it's a real pitfall of people on the right that mock Angela Rayner, even though Angela Rayner looks like a lot of reform voters.
Has anyone here mocked Angela Rayner?
I don't agree with her views, but good for her.
Yeah. Look, Darren, you're common as muck.
In more ways than one.
How do you feel?
Look, I mean, you look at the ranks of the Labour Party, and in the shadow cabinet, you've got someone called Thangam Debonair. So I don't really think
What's
that,
wrong
you know...
with that?
Well, how does that not sound overtly
It's
posh?
a Sri Lankan name.
I mean, you just look across to be honest, Benjamin, if I look ignorant compared to you, I couldn't give a flying flamingo.
There's nothing wrong with the name Thangam Debonair.
It sounds incredibly posh. And I just sort of... I look at the fact that Angela Rayner wants to get rid...
you didn't go to a private school.
No, I didn't, actually, and I'm very much proud of that, because you are the ultimate hypocrite. You sit there on your bloody bottom getting paid to talk to the telly, and frankly, you went to a pretty nice school yourself.
I went to a state comprehensive.
How dare you, in Alderley Edge? It's hardly in the bloody depths of County Durham, is it? And you point at the Conservative Party and say that they're incredibly posh and all the rest of it, and their privilege and all these other things. It's values that we care about. Working class people aren't some kind of pet project that are the preserve of the left. I think you people need to get over yourself and stop being so damn condescending.
What I'd say, first of all, David Lammy's not someone to be taken seriously. He was on LBC earlier this week and he said he didn't know what... He thinks that a man can grow a cervix or can be transplanted a cervix, which is absolute nonsense. So, I mean, I think David Lammy went to a relatively good school as well, supposedly quite an intelligent man. So I wouldn't take anything he says seriously. Secondly, this whole classism debate is just total nonsense, really, because we should just be a country of aspiration. If you happen to go to a good school, great. It doesn't make you a smart person, but good for you. And I think we should allow everyone to be able to have the same opportunities, and what Labour are doing with their policy on this is actually depriving people who might be on the cusp of just being able to afford private school, who actually are perhaps the people who've worked hard, like Dr Renee here, to get their kids into private school. Some of those will miss out now.
But can I just say, I think you're all missing the point.
All right.
Hang on, no, first of all, I just have to point out, I was born in a council estate. I was born in a council estate to two prisoner parents.
I think we have commercial breaks that are more important than you setting out your CV, to be honest. Still ahead, though, we'll talk all things election-related with Samuel Casimou, a former special advisor to Boris Johnson. Would the Conservatives be doing better if they hadn't ditched Boris? I assume Benjamin will be picking up what school Boris went to. Next of all, though, should poor old donkeys have to carry overweight kids up and down the beach? Not on my watch, says a donkey ride owner in Skegness. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign. And thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War. Restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Time for a very quick message before our final debate. And Titch has written in saying, Labour keeps saying Rwanda won't work. It hasn't started yet. We've paid for it, so Starmer should give it a go. We know he won't. And I just want to point out, Margaret says Thangham Debonair actually changed her surname by deed poll. How's that for pretentious credentials, she said. So much for me being ignorant. Anyway, who's up next?
It's me.
Oh, donkeys.
Donkeys.
Take it away.
So, a seaside donkey ride owner in Skegness has actually divided the room and caused controversy this week by demanding that children who look like they might be too heavy for his donkeys get weighed on the beach before they're allowed to get into the saddle. Donkey rides are as synonymous with British holidays as games, arcades, ice cream and rainy days. And so is walking the donkeys up and down the beach with the children on their back. And this family have been doing it for 100 years, and they say that of late, children have got so heavy that it's putting the lives of their donkeys in danger. So they're demanding that children that are heavy step on the scales before they can get on. He's not doing it to fat shame children. He's doing it to look after his donkeys. And he says any child that weighs more than 6 stone, I only weigh 8, will not get on the back of his donkeys. Now, whilst animal lovers might be applauding, Catherine Jenner from the Obesity Health Alliance has said that on BBC News that it's completely unacceptable to weigh a child in public and then say they can't go on a ride. But is it? We often see tearful children at the fun fair being told that they're just not tall enough to get on the roller coaster. They'll have to wait till next year. It's life. They have to get on with it because they're not tall enough. Kids are getting heavier. In 2021-22, 10.1% of 4- and 5-year-olds were obese, and once they get to age 10 or 11, 24% of them are obese and 14% are overweight. So I'm sorry, I'm with John Nuttall and his donkey rides. It's not just because I care about animals either. I'm sick and tired of this use of the slur, fat shaming, to stop any debate about the real health disadvantages of being obese. We need to be able to talk about the literal elephant in the room and explain to people that they must do something about it.
Well, Richard has written in, and Richard says, switch it around and have these overweight kids carry the donkeys up the beach. That's an idea. But I think calling little children elephants, Renee, that's mean, isn't it?
Look, fat children make fat adults. Fat adults are going to die sooner than if they weren't overweight. It's a fact. Being obese causes all sorts of problems, including cancer, and it's costing the NHS a fortune. We need to be able to talk about it.
And it is cruel on the donkeys.
Look, I mean, a friend of mine recently said that obesity runs in the family, and I said, I don't think anyone runs in your family by the looks of it. but in all seriousness, you know, I do think this is wrong because I suspect that the breadth of weight that an 8-year-old kid has is probably relatively minimal compared to what a donkey can carry. And should you, if your job is to put kids on donkeys' backs, not be able to judge by sight whether it's appropriate without having them have to stare at the scales in front of their parents or their siblings or their mates and everyone else?
So you are OK with them just saying, sorry, Johnny, you just look too fat to me?
Well, no, because I think you can say, oh, I don't think this would work. I don't think this is the right donkey for you, right? You know, maybe you should try red rum or something, you know, that can take you. I think there are much more diplomatic ways you can do it. And this could cause real trauma. You know what? Referring more to adults than kids. But if the problem with fat people was telling them they were fat, then they wouldn't any longer be fat. They know what they look like. It's just not that simple.
Well, within the context of it being a donkey that they're sitting on, it's a little bit different because that donkey will possibly, you know, break his back after multiple.
Carrying humans.
After multiple. Well, quite. There's an argument for that as well. Animal welfare. I genuinely do believe it's wrong to have kids that are overweight sit on top of an animal that's going to be hurt by them. I don't see how anyone reasonable can disagree with that. I don't know what the method should be, whether it's weighing them or not. I haven't really thought about it, but maybe that might seem a little bit cruel. But at the same time, who do you prioritise?
Is it any more cruel than measuring them and saying you're not tall enough?
I don't disagree with you there, Renee.
I think my question would be, why is it that kids are getting fatter? And instead of talking about a symptom of a problem, let's talk about the cause of a problem. I was a fat child. I was quite depressed after my parents split up, and I comfort ate. Lots of people comfort eat. Other people are fat because they don't do enough exercise. They've got a very sedentary lifestyle and they eat too many calories. Other people are fat because they have some sort of illness which makes them fat. Now, I think that's really quite over-egged, actually, in today's society. Everyone's suddenly got an illness that makes them fat as soon as you start talking about 63% of adults being overweight. We need to start talking about the causes of why people are so fat and actually solve them. But whenever people start talking about interventions from the state to either reduce the amount of sugar and salt and fat in food, Alex, Darren and company start talking about the creep of the nanny state.
Well, I would wonder, though, if the poor donkey tour owner or whatever it is would be worried that he'd be accused of being discriminatory and fall, under some discrimination law for saying no to this fat child.
Can I ask, because obviously you're a GP, so this is something that you deal with very practically. You know, you do see people, they say they've got a thyroid problem, and I think you've got a cake in mouth problem, to be honest. How do you actually manage that when you're confronted with somebody?
It's very, very difficult, but you have to... Well, you can prove someone doesn't have a thyroid problem. It's quite easy to prove. Say, OK, fine, that might be the problem. Let's sort it out.
So that's legitimate, a thyroid problem?
Yeah, but it's very small in terms of the number of people that are overweight because of that. So... Albie's right, that is over-egged. But there are some people on steroids, for example. But most people, if they eat less, will lose weight.
Yeah.
And it is as simple as that. Also, if most people did not eat ultra-processed food, they wouldn't be overweight.
Correct. And I do think this also goes to the point about the nanny state situation. Parents should take responsibility for their children's health.
Indeed. Right. Loads more to come on the show tonight, including a former special advisor to Boris Johnson, a right old scrap between Alex and Albie, and news of a robot trying to commit suicide in Bunch of Five. You're watching the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Giovanni is axed following growing allegations of threatening and abusive behaviour.
We won't see his little toes dancing around the dance floor again, which is a shame.
Was it the BBC saying, you know, we've had some bad publicity about this star, do we need to maybe let him go? Or was it Giovanni himself saying that, you know, he's had to, with all the bad publicity and what's the allegations against him, he's walked away? We don't exactly know. But what we do know is that Amanda Abingdon, who he was coupled with last year on the last series of Strictly, left claiming that she had nasty behaviour from him in rehearsals when they were training for their routines. And she's also been diagnosed with PTSD, which she is blaming or claiming happened because of the training that she was put under Giovanni. It's very sad because I've met Giovanni on quite a few occasions, and he comes across as a very nice gentleman, actually, and the fans absolutely love him. And even though the allegations are out there against him, everybody I speak to in terms of the fans are on his side.
I mean, from the fans' point of view, they don't see what goes on behind the scenes. All they see is an incredibly gifted dancer who we're seeing footage of now.
It might come out later, but there's all sorts of things coming out because after Amanda came out and claimed all this behaviour against him, a male celebrity last week also came out and voice their opinion. Yeah, a lot of fans will be gutted, but as you say, we don't know the full story yet as what's gone on.
And it's incredible pressure that no one's allowed to be, a duffer right from the start now.
I mean, it's one thing learning lines if you're an actor, but it's a different kettle of fish altogether if you're learning moves that you've never done before. So you've got...
The People's Channel.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area of low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's still Saturday night, and this is still the Saturday Five. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Albie Allen-Corner, Dr. Renee, Alex Armstrong and Benjamin Butterworth. Plenty more to come tonight. We're about to speak all things election-related with an award-winning social entrepreneur and former special advisor to Boris Johnson, Samuel Casimou. And it could get heated in the Saturday scrap this evening as Alex and Albie go head-to-head on whether celebrities should get involved in politics. It's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday Five. Also tonight in Bunch of Five, we'll be speaking about robots. And no, folks, I'm not talking about Sir Keir Starmer. They've actually been committing suicide, these robots. What's going on here? And why is Barcelona's Arabic account celebrating Pride Month? And was Dua Lipa's set at Glastonbury really worth turning up for and, frankly, paying the cash? Then we'll answer your questions in Ask the Five. Please do send them through to gbnews.com/yoursay. First of all, though, it's your Saturday Night News with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you very much, and good evening to you. It's just after 7 o'clock. As we've been hearing tonight, the top story is that Reform UK has now withdrawn support for 3 of its election candidates who were accused of using racist comments to describe migrants. Edward Oakenfull, Robert Lomas and Leslie Lilly will remain on the ballot paper but are no longer endorsed by the party. Meanwhile, a Reform campaigner who was recorded using a racist slur against the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak admits he's been a total fool. Reform UK, though, has now reported the Channel 4 network to the elections watchdog, accusing the broadcaster of interfering in the election. It claims the undercover news piece was a set-up, but the network is standing by its footage. Sir Keir Starmer is calling for the Conservatives to face a democratic reckoning at the ballot box in the general election on the 4th of July. The Labour leader has been speaking tonight to supporters in London at his campaign rally as it reaches its final weekend. Celebrities including Jason Manford, Kit Harington and Beverley Knight joined him in Westminster. And there was also this video message from Sir Elton John.
We're backing Keir and Labour to win this election. There is only one choice. Let's help artists cut through the red tape that prevents them from thriving and contributing to this country's future success. Let's show the world what a creative, prosperous and forward-thinking nation Britain is.
Well, polls are suggesting that there is a potential landslide win for Labour in the general election. But Sir Keir Starmer warned tonight voters that they have a lack of interest that could lead to a Conservative government. Leaning on that support from the likes of Sir Elton John, Sir Keir Starmer urged voters to give him a clear mandate.
This is the final furlong. This is the final mile, the last push. And it's the hardest mile as well. But it's the chance, absolutely the chance, to do for our country what we did for our party and return Britain to the service of working people. British people want change, but the hope has almost been kicked out. They need to be convinced that change is possible.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has been hailing the duty, dedication and selfless personal sacrifice of servicemen and women as he marked Armed Forces Day. Rishi Sunak claimed that his is the only party to meet the Help for Heroes Veterans Pledge. That pledge requires parties to commit to keeping the Office for Veterans Affairs, commissioning an independent review of the medical discharge process and ensuring that veterans get the benefits and compensations that they deserve. Well, Security Minister Tom Tugendhat told us this morning that Armed Forces Day is more than just one day a year.
Armed Forces Day, for those of us who are veterans, isn't just one day a year. We live with our service, good and bad, throughout the year. And for some of us, that can bring back painful memories, but it can also bring back huge moments of pride of having served alongside some of the best that our country has to offer. Look at the record. Look at what Johnny Mercer has achieved as the Minister for Veterans Affairs, and look at what the Prime Minister has achieved in creating that cabinet position for Veterans Affairs. We've got Op Resolute and Op Courage that help veterans who may be finding life just a little bit difficult.
In other news tonight, 2 men who spent time with the missing teenager Jay Slater before he disappeared in Tenerife have now been ruled out of the police investigation there. It's now nearly 2 weeks since the 19-year-old went missing. Hikers and locals are among those who've turned up to support an expanded search effort across the island in a mountainous area in the north. Here, police have issued a warning over a possible contaminated batch of drugs. That's after a man has died and 7 people are in hospital. The man was thought to have taken the sleeping medication Zopiclone before he died. Cleveland police say the other people affected, also believed to have taken those pills, were taken to North Tees General Hospital. Police are urging anyone with information to get in touch. And finally, Coldplay will make history later tonight as the first act to headline Glastonbury 5 times when they perform at the festival this evening. The Grammy award-winning band first played the Pyramid Stage in 2002 and also topped the bill in 2005, 2011 and in 2016. They follow tonight on from Dua Lipa, who was the headline act yesterday. That's the latest from the GB newsroom for now. I'll be back with your next update at 8 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday Five. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively hour. We're going to crack on now with tonight's big interview. Now, with opinion polls still suggesting that the Conservatives are in for an absolute drubbing in the general election this week, more than a few are asking whether they made a big mistake back in September of 2022 when they removed Boris Johnson, who won that big majority in 2019. Now, to help us answer this, let's have a chat with the award-winning social entrepreneur and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Samuel Casimou. Good evening, Samuel. Thank you very much for your time. Do you actually pinpoint the Conservatives? I know that the polls would actually suggest that when you look at them laid out on a timeline, but do you pinpoint the Conservatives' decline on that very point, on that point of getting rid of a Prime Minister that won that majority?
Well, good evening, Darren, and good evening to everybody. Thanks for having me. I think the context of when my former boss left is very important. Of course, we had the drama around Partygate. There was quite a high turnover of advisors during that period. We were still trying to transition out of a pandemic. And so it was, or is understandable to appreciate that some of his colleagues may have panicked. But ultimately, we were 4 or 5 points behind in the polls. This was during the midterm period. There was absolutely no way in hindsight that any of those Conservative members of Parliament who decided to remove Boris Johnson would have made the same decision if they knew what would come after him, which has been an absolute shocking chain of events, bluntly.
And it's been the greatest blessing for the Labour Party, I should say. And Samuel, I want to ask you about your book, The Power of the Outsider, because I want to ask as well, off the back of that, do you think that's what the Conservative Party needs now? Because, well, I don't think they're going to have much chance to get an insider, given the amount of people that are going to lose their seats if the polls are correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are going to be some challenges for the Conservative. Well, there are some challenges now, but certainly some new challenges after next Thursday. We don't know which members of Parliament are going to still be there. We don't know which of the current potential new intake will be successful in being elected. But no matter what the composition of the Conservative parliamentarians are come July the 4th, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for them to find a way within the next 4 to 5 years to have a coherent strategy offer for the British people who bluntly view our brand right now as toxic and are very disappointed with how we've chucked away a very significant 80 majority in 2019.
Yeah. Samuel, you know a lot of the key players in the Conservative Party. You work with them very closely when you worked at Number 10. You know Pretty, you know Kemi, you know Robert Jenrick. You know all the runners and riders who might be the next Tory leader if Rishi Sunak loses as expected next Thursday. Who do you think would be best to take on the job?
Oh, gosh, that is a very difficult question to answer. I think the Conservative Party is a broad church, and some people would argue that that's part of the challenge that we have today, that there are people who are maybe more aligned with reform and some folks who people might feel got lost on the way to joining a union and somehow have ended up in the Conservative Party, right? But I think if you look at the Labour Party today, they would argue that they're also a relatively broad church. And so it does come back to leadership. And so the question for me is, who in the next 5 years can command the respect of their peers, regardless of where they might locate themselves ideologically within the Conservative family. And that will take someone who, number one, is experienced, somebody that perhaps has led a great office of state. Number two, somebody that is maybe not too tarnished by the events over the last 2 years. And number three, somebody that is willing to reach out to folks that might not naturally agree with them. And when I look at the folks that might be left after next Thursday, I think that is only probably 1 or 2 people who could. Oh gosh, you're going to make me say a name?
Yeah.
No, I think there are a number of people. I think Priti Patel is an interesting candidate. She's been a Home Secretary, I would say a relatively successful Home Secretary. People would probably locate her towards the right of the party, but I know that there are moderates who hold her in very high regard. And again, I don't think she's been tarnished by the events over the last 2 years. For me, I would say she's probably the dark horse here. Also, I think in 4 or 5 years' time, immigration will still be a very significant subject for the public. I don't think Keir Starmer is going to stop the boats. In fact, I don't think he has a plan to stop the boats.
Well,
I don't think. I think migration will reduce, but only because of the things that are already in train to happen. And so I think someone like Priti will have the credibility to ask the tough questions, to hold Keir to account. So I think she's probably, on balance, the one to beat.
Samuel, I want to bring in Alexander Armstrong because he actually left the Conservative Party quite recently. And Alex, I wonder, would you have stayed, do you think, if Boris was still leading the party?
Well, my problem with Boris was that he actually wasn't as conservative as he tried to make himself out to be. He was actually far more on the Liberal side, far on the higher tax end of things too. And I wonder, Samuel, and the net zero madness as well, which was obviously his policies. How do you think the public would respond to him today, given that these policies are perhaps the reason why people like me have left the Conservative Party? I used to be of the thought that the Tories would trounce it with Boris, and I think there's name recognition. But do you think the message still would hold true without Brexit?
Yeah, but if you mean in terms of winning an election, which is a slightly different objective. So to win an election, you need to be able to hold on to your core vote, but also you need to be able to reach out to folks who might not be your natural bedfellows. And so in 2019, when we won, there was a very clear slogan, get Brexit done. And what people often forget is that it wasn't just folks who voted to leave the European Union that wanted to get it done. It was, most of the public were tired of the debate and the drama that was happening in the House of Commons at the time. And so we were able to reach out to also folks in the Red Wall who may have or may not have voted to leave the European Union, but were captivated by what Boris, as a great campaigner, could offer. And of course, there is a big difference between winning an election. So if your question is around, could Boris win an election in 4 or 5 years' time, the answer is absolutely yes. But the separate point is then, based on some of the things that he's very passionate about, would he be able to inspire natural Conservatives to feel like his project is what they can align themselves with? I think that's a slightly separate point. The problem with Boris Johnson is when he's not in charge, he will write really interesting things for the Telegraph or the Mail or whatever. Yeah. And then when he then has power, whether that be as a mayor of London or as a prime minister, you probably tend to get a slightly more liberal, progressive
Samuel, do you think that the Conservatives will be calm enough after this supposed car crash next week to not replace the leader too quickly? Because I wonder if replacing the leader too quickly means that they won't have time for introspection and looking at where they went wrong. They need to stay with Rishi for a while, be able to self-critique before they then decide who's the right person to take them to the right place.
Yeah, I've heard people speak about that as an option, but I don't know what the rules are within the Constitution, and the folks who hold the power tend to change the rules to suit themselves. So we'll have to see what they decide to do in the coming weeks. I think the bigger challenge is, as you say, there is a need for some introspection. There's a need to reflect on how we got to this moment, and can that happen within 2 or 3 months? Including a summer where everybody's going to want to get away from Westminster for a while, for understandably so. And then you come back in September, and then you have party conference, and then you have a leader. That does feel very quick to me, but I don't know what the rules are. And to be honest, for me, the most important thing is who is the leader that comes next. And what we don't need is somebody who doesn't have experience, who's going to promise the world and under-deliver. I really, really do think what we need, after this shocking result that we're going to get on Thursday, somebody with some experience, some respect that can steady the ship for the next 4 or 5 years.
And
that's what I hope we get. I'm not sure.
That would be nice,
and of course, and the Conservative.
All right, Samuel Casimou, thank you very much for your insight there into that issue. Now, Benjamin Butterworth, do you fear Priti Patel?
No, I think if I were a Conservative, if you asked me to put a bet on, which isn't very fashionable in politics at the moment, my bet would be that Priti Patel will be the next Conservative Party leader.
Interesting.
And I think she will win it quite clearly. I get the impression that what that former advisor was talking about when he said we don't want someone who promises a lot and is inexperienced, I think that's a criticism of Kemi Badenoch. I think Suella Braverman is chaotic and unreliable, and she was the person who let all the immigrants in, which she claims to have a problem with. So I think she will not get very far. I think Priti Patel would be their best choice.
Does anyone on the panel think that anyone actually cares? Do you think everyone's just checked out and sort of thinks, I actually don't care what happens to the Conservative Party?
I also completely disagree with Benjamin. I think it's going to be a Liberal one nation Tory, because that's who's going to be left. Right, and who's going to vote for a right winger when the rest of them are left leaning?
And is that not where Farage steps in?
Absolutely.
There is no question after Nigel Farage's stance on Putin, Russia and Ukraine, all of the allegations of racism against campaigners and candidates in the Reform Party, that there will ever be a merger of the Conservatives and the Reform Party.
Well, I guess the Conservative Party will have to die then, won't it?
Okay.
None at all.
Enough talk. It's time for us to put our heads on the chopping block, because we're going to write down our predictions for the vote share right now, and then they'll be unveiled next week, and we'll let you know at home how we all actually got on. Albie, you're supervising this. He's got his magic box.
Yes, I am. We've all got a box here, gentlemen, and you all have envelopes in front of you with names of the parties: Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, Reform, the Green Party, SNP, and Plaid Cymru. And we're going to write down our predictions on how many seats they'll win. And next week we're going to see who is the winner.
Okie doke.
But it's a great test of my maths, because it has to add up to 630.
Roughly. Maybe do it to the nearest 10.
Should we massage the figures?
Well, that expensive school didn't do much good, did it?
My school was free. You all paid for it.
Dr. Renee, who are you betting on to win the election, and what's your sort of prediction of the outcome?
So I am predicting a hung parliament.
Interesting.
Which I know is a bit out there right now and against all of the polls. I'm not convinced by the polls. I think there's a massive dissatisfaction amongst people, and I think we're going to see that next week. It's going to be a shock.
Do you know what? I'm of a similar mind. I think the polls can't be as wrong as they are, but we have seen it before. I think there is going to be a Labour majority, a substantial one, but I think it's the Tories that are going to get really trounced. I really don't know anyone who's still got confidence in voting for them. It's a shame, because I do think there are some fantastic Tory MPs that I would put my ballot, my cross next to on the ballot if they were my MP. But I suspect Reform will actually outperform what the polls say. I really do believe that. I also believe that Labour are going to really trounce the Tories, and that the Tories will be gone in Scotland completely.
I think what's quite interesting is, first of all, you can see my awful handwriting. Signed, sealed and delivered to put in this box over here, which will open next week. Benjamin, take your time, don't worry about it. But I think what's quite interesting about
You should have gone to a better school.
That'll be worth money, that will.
Is we spend all of this time talking about Reform. They're probably going to get less than 10 seats, in my opinion. Meanwhile, the Lib Dems could get between 50 and 60. And we're barely talking about
We'll have to leave that there, because we've got the Great British Giveaway. We can't miss that. It's time for the Great British Giveaway now. This is a big one. It's your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. It's our biggest prize to date, and here's how you could win it.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 £30,000 in tax-free cash? Text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, still to come tonight, no topics are off limits when we answer your questions in Ask the Five. Plus, we rate Dua Lipa's Glastonbury set and ask why we've started driving robots to suicide. But next, it's just after 7:20 p.m, so it must be time for someone to wipe the floor with Albie in the Saturday Scrap. Alex takes the stage this week. He and Albie will debate whether politicians should have their say, celebrities rather, on political issues, or should they keep out of it altogether. Elton John being one of them. Alex is furious at Elton. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
He fell into a coma. His family, of course, absolutely distraught. Because Turkey is outside the European Union, it therefore doesn't count under the Global Health Insurance card scheme, which means that he is liable for these costs, and the family say that he's being held there for until they pay at least half the £41,000 that is owed.
One of our viewers here saying their premium, because they have health conditions, can be as much as £1,000. But if they're going to go overseas to, as you say, a non-EU country, they still should take it. That's the message here, isn't it? Don't take the risk.
Absolutely. Now, if you do have lots of pre-existing medical conditions, or you're an older person, my lovely mother-in-law is going to be 95 this week. She's still travelling, but only within Europe, and only because the cost of insurance is going to be many times the cost of the trip. And she just thinks, OK, well, I'll get emergency medical treatment free if I'm in the European Union and I've got that GHIC card. But beyond that, absolutely not. It's not worth the risk.
You have to have your card, do you, Simon, to get treatment within the EU? You should just apply for that online.
You should certainly apply for it online. Don't go to any of the scam sites that want to charge you money for it, because it's a free card. But actually, if you haven't, it's absolutely not a huge problem. Yes, you have to go through a bit of rigmarole, or at least your family do, to sort it out. But in general, if you go to a public hospital, they will treat you first and ask questions later in the European Union. And if you're a British resident, you should get it for free. Even if you forgot to get the GHIC card, they will sort it out eventually.
Britain's election channel. GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, the American people have no choice but to put Donald Trump in the White House following Joe Biden's catastrophic TV appearance this week. This has become a national security threat for America and the world. And in My Take at 10, as woke revelers celebrate illegal migrants crossing the Channel, Glastonbury is a festival of double standards. We're live at 9.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for your company and for your messages about tonight's topics. RJ's written in, and RJ says, Darren, I don't know who that guy is that you've just had on, Samuel, but he should be the next leader of the Conservatives. I would vote for him. There's an endorsement and a half. Albie says he would too. Now, there's another... We're talking about suicidal robots later in the show, and Christopher says he makes a good point on this because he says he was the robot trying to calculate who was the worst for this country, Sunak or Starmer. And with that dilemma, the robot said, I'm out of here. So, it's time for this. Ding dong, ding ding even, ding dong, something altogether different. It's time for tonight's main event. From David Tennant having a pop at Kemi Badenoch to J.K. Rowling taking aim at the Scottish Government to Gary Lineker signing up to whatever cause might be fashionable this week, there's never a shortage, is there, of celebrities who are eager to have their say on all matters political. And are they perfectly entitled to have their say, or as totally unelected figures who might sing or kick a ball or whatever else, should they keep quiet and stick to the day job? Well, our very own AA man, Alex Armstrong, and Albie Amann-Kona have differing views on this. So let's see who gets the better of this debate. Seconds out, it's round one. Away you go, Albie.
Well, I'm an AA man as well, being Albie Amann-Kona, of course. So what I will say is GB News is the channel of free speech. That's what we brand ourselves as. We're a group of people with different opinions. We express those opinions, we argue those opinions, and whoever has the best opinion wins. And I would simply say, in that spirit, how could we possibly deny someone, just because they've done very well in their particular field, whether or not they're a footballer, an actor, a writer, a singer, an opinion? J.K. Rowling has an opinion on transgender issues and on gender ideology that lots of viewers at home agree with. No one would say that J.K. Rowling shouldn't speak. David Tennant has a different opinion on the trans issue that perhaps other people at home agree with. I think they're both entitled to their opinions. I don't like the way that David Tennant interacted with J.K. Rowling this week, but Alex Armstrong, as a free speech fanatic, as I'm sure you would describe yourselves, would you really say a celebrity shouldn't have the same free speech as you?
No, look, I totally agree on the free speech. What I don't like is politicians endorsing political parties or organisations that they know very little about. Let's just cast our minds back to Black Lives Matter just a few years ago, and celebrities were funneling, through their celebrityism on their social media, they were funneling millions and millions into an organisation that ultimately ended up being completely corrupt. A lot of these celebrities, when you ask them their opinions on these critical topics that their parties they endorse supposedly support, they don't know a thing about them. So they're influencing usually young people who have a fully formed opinion yet, who are then going to put their cross next to somebody in a ballot box when they don't know what they're talking about. But let's also have a look at one more thing. A lot of these celebrities, let's take Elton John as a great example. He's just come out today in support of Labour. The man doesn't even live in this country. He has none of whatever happens in the next government will impact him, and he's yet trying to influence the votes of millions of people through his platform. And we take other celebrities, like taxpayer-funded celebrities like Gary Lineker, and I think you're putting salt massively in the wound of people who don't want to have to pay for someone like Gary Lineker to have fashionable comments that they disagree with.
Do you think that J.K. Rowling, therefore, should not speak about trans issues?
No, because she's talking about a single topic and she's not funneling people to support a particular cause.
She suggested that people should vote for the Communist Party.
Well, I think that's pretty bonkers. I didn't know that. That's pretty bonkers. But the point is that she's raising awareness. I don't mind celebrities raising awareness. That's one of the things that they do well, and they usually put that focus onto charity. The Royals are a great example of this. But the royal family are perfect examples of how celebrities should behave. They put their time and effort into good causes where their audience can make a difference, not into spiteful political divisiveness.
Alex, you've just gone back on yourself because your argument initially was that celebrities should not be using their influence to influence people's minds. I asked you who influenced your batty opinions. You weren't able to answer
vote for
the
political
question.
parties, I said.
But then you have just said there are some celebrities, J.K. Rowling, the royals, actually they're allowed because you like them.
But they're putting to good causes. I was really clear. Putting their words to good cause, to good charities.
Right. Free speech if I like
you,
no speech if you don't.
There's a really big difference between supporting Help for Heroes versus endorsing the Labour Party as your next government.
Yeah.
It's a really big difference.
Free
Let's be clear
speech if
about
I
that.
like you, no speech if I
not
don't.
quite. Not quite.
I think, Halby, I think I'm going to just come in here and something that Alex says actually rings true. Elton John does not even live in this country.
That's completely false. He lives in Windsor.
No, he doesn't. He lives in California.
No. He lives in the UK.
No.
He's raising 2 kids who are educated in this country.
Does he live with them?
Yes, they live in Windsor. It's a matter of public record.
Interesting.
OK, what I was going to say then was J.K. Rowling has taken up a cause with which she has skin in the game. She is a woman that will be impacted by the things that she is arguing about. Gary Lineker saying that everybody should accept immigrants flooding over our borders is not impacted by that because he lives in a gilded cage.
Correct.
He doesn't have to get into the health service. He doesn't get onto the housing queue. He doesn't have to join a waiting list at the local hospital. So I think there's a difference when people are completely out of touch with the topic that affects people day in, day out.
So you're saying there's a point where you get too rich to have a view?
I'm not saying that, no, because J.K.
Sounds a lot
Rowling
like what you said.
is probably a lot richer than Gary Lineker.
But you just said that Gary... No, hang on, I want to ask the question. You said that you didn't think that Gary Lineker should have a view because he is probably less affected by immigration than others because he's rich.
I didn't say he shouldn't have a view. I said that he's actually influencing or trying to influence loads of people about a topic which doesn't affect him in any way.
Do you think that J.K. Rowling has to use the loos at the train station that she talks about,
I think she
just like everybody else?
I think she probably when I go to the train station.
I've got a feeling she can afford a private car by the same metric that you're saying Gary Lineker...
That doesn't have a toilet in it, does it? I mean, look, it's like
you're suggesting Gary Lineker isn't affected.
I'm sure she goes to restaurants. I'm sure J.K. Rowling goes to restaurants so she has to use a toilet.
All right, let's ask this. Do you think Taylor Swift should have a view on climate change?
I think if she wants to express her view, she's entitled.
Let's have a look at Taylor Swift's actions then. She flies around the world on a private jet. She flies to the local supermarket on a private jet. Do you not think that she's a hypocrite for that?
Well, I don't think she actually does talk about climate change, right?
She has. She has multiple times.
The point is that you seem to be saying that if somebody becomes talented and successful enough, then they apparently forfeit their right to talk about the world they want to see.
No, but there's a point of becoming hypocritical.
Gary Lineker works for the BBC, Benjamin. So
he works for lots of people. He owns a company that makes lots of money and pays lots of taxes and employs lots of people.
But
I just can't believe
Conservatives and Labour are paying his wages.
I just can't believe 3 people on this panel who talk about free speech all the time are basically saying J.K. Rowling's OK because I like what she's saying, Gary Lineker not OK because I don't like what he's saying, Elton John not OK because he's supporting the Labour Party.
You're misstating my point.
If these people were supporting the Reform Party or the Conservative Party, would you be saying... Would you be saying the same thing?
Hang on, I haven't actually said anything. I didn't actually say.
Would you be saying the same? Would you be agreeing with Renee and Alex?
I don't think people care what celebrities think. Is my opinion. I think actually they should stop saying it because people hold them with such utter contempt. They're not going to be impacted by the cost of net zero. They're not going to be impacted by the migration crisis coming over here. They're not going to be impacted, as Benjamin just said, actually, by public toilets and all these other things. So I just think people are sick to their wits' end.
So you
these
think
people
J.K. Rowling should shut up?
Benjamin, I think you've had more than 1 or 2 comments already, so we're going to leave it there because we need to get to a break.
Do you think J.K. Rowling should shut up?
I think that you should shut up.
You just said that
Still
they're not
ahead,
affected.
Though, time to test us in Ask
Why won't
the
he answer the
Five
question?
because we've got to get to a break.
Honestly.
And I think actually, if he wants to keep his job, he should let us get to the break.
At least I answered the question.
Now, time to ask a question in Ask the Five. No topics are off limits, but next in the bunch of 5, Dua Lipa was the star of the show at Glastonbury last night, but miserable old Alexander Armstrong isn't pleased with her efforts. What's his problem? We'll find out. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area of low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News,
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Your verdict on the Saturday scrap is in. John says, so now we're supposed to be influenced by Elton John and his husband, living all over the world and travelling in their private jet. Not for them the worry of heating bills and services overburdened. You're a man after my own heart, John. But Helen says, I'll be one that with his first sentence. Free speech means all are entitled to have our say. No one forces you to agree with what you hear. Now, though, it's time for this. What have you got, Albie?
I saw a very interesting story in The Times today. It is London Pride today, and I read a story about a woman called Ellie Fazan, 40-year-old woman, who decided she wanted to have a child. So she ended up having a child with her best friend and his partner. So this child has 3 parents, 2 fathers, 1 mother, and it is sort of a modern, happy family. Alex Armstrong, you're looking over with an inquisitive face. Can I say disgusted face?
No,
why are you disgusted?
I'm not disgusted, Albie. Don't put words in my mouth. That's horrible.
I was just reading your facial expression.
I just think that it's quite confusing. I think it's quite confusing to have 3 parents. I think a 3-parent family might be quite difficult. I'm completely in favour of gay people being able to adopt, of course. But I think 3 parents might just muddle things up a little bit for the child.
So did they do it by IVF?
By IVF, yes, they had IVF. It wasn't. The child doesn't have 3 biological parents, by the way. It's Ellie Fazan's child with her friend Eddie, who is married or is partnered with someone called Jack. So it is Eddie and Ellie's biological child, and they had the child through in vitro fertilisation.
Any problem, Renee?
Dr. Renee, is there a problem?
Do you know, I don't have a problem with this at all because I think children are better in families. That's what I actually think. And I did read this story this morning. They've actually bought a house and divided it into 3. One floor is hers, one floor is the gay couple, and then they have a generalised living area. And I read the story and I thought, hideous, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's my problem with it.
I think that's called a hotel at that point.
Renee, what have you got for us?
So I was quite saddened this week to read about a robot in South Korea, because in South Korea, 1 in 10 workers are robots who have work passes to go to work like you and I do. They trundle around the building, they use the lifts. This robot obviously got so worn down by his task that he went to the top of the stairs and threw himself down them. The robot committed suicide. So I just thought to myself, if work is becoming so tedious for robots, we really need to start thinking about people's mental health generally and putting in place policies for robots.
Well, but the robot doesn't have autonomous thought, does it? It doesn't. It can't.
Wow.
It can't judge that its own life.
No, it definitely doesn't. This is just obviously a faulty robot, unfortunately, that has miscalculated its next
People
move.
in South Korea are mourning the robot.
Yeah, well,
I think, did it hurt anyone, by the way, when it fell off?
It hurt himself. It broke into pieces.
Well, yes.
You're assuming the robot's gender, I noticed. But I think artificial intelligence means that you can have robots, for a simple term, that are effectively sentient, that are thinking for
that's
themselves.
not true. That's not what artificial intelligence is.
It is true. That's the kind of thing it's developing into.
Well,
no, that's not true. Artificial intelligence does not mean that the robots are sentient.
They're making decisions for themselves, and I think
no, they're not. No,
that's
they're not.
Exactly what it's developing.
No,
into.
it's not. It's not.
All right.
But let's not start.
Well, we've replaced you with one next Saturday.
Right. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, sorry to bring him up again, but Sir Keir Starmer, his plans for private schools and adding VAT onto those fees, which actually many have argued would actually close a lot of these independent schools. Well, the top lawyer in the country, Panic is his name, KC, has said that actually, well, it'll put Sir Keir Starmer in a bit of a panic as well, I think. He said that this policy could actually impede the European Court of Human Rights, the rights under the ECHR, namely the right to education. He's argued that the policy may be a contradiction of that court and fall foul of its rules. And I just thought this was an absolutely delicious story because he thinks the ECHR is the best thing since sliced bread.
I think when we get to the point where Keir Starmer will have to pull out of the ECHR in order to get his schools policy through, it will be a party day.
Benjamin, you are now calling for us to leave the ECHR.
I've declared. I'm not. It's obviously complete nonsense. The idea that you have to have certain tax rules on a private school that don't apply to private tutors, I don't think is a matter for the ECHR.
Well, they're saying it is because if
one man is saying it.
Well, he knows a bit more about the law than you do.
It's quite notable that it's taken this long and got this close to election before somebody thought this idea.
He actually apparently advised Labour on this. He says he told them this at the time and they decided to go ahead with their plans. They probably had other advice that was different. But I think this is likely to happen. There will be challenges.
Something makes me feel like Keir Starmer will pick up a phone call to his lefty friends in the ECHR and just go, do you mind just pushing that?
Call me a closet right-winger, but I don't think not paying VAT on your private school fees is a human right.
No, but if the school closes as a consequence, they're saying that
or
that
the
would
child
then
has
deny...
to be pulled out, which is traumatic halfway through.
Yeah.
I think this is a silly story.
Oh,
well, it is the bunch of five.
Alex. Talking of silly stories, would you pay hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands of pounds to go and see a superstar, supposed superstar, lip sync live on stage, but also wave political flags around? Well, that's exactly what Dua Lipa's been doing in Glastonbury this weekend. She did it yesterday, I believe. She's waving a Palestine flag around as she mimes live on stage.
Well, that's not proven, right?
Well, OK, fine. There's allegations that she's miming, and let me just read a tweet out for you. Anyone watching Glasgow just whacked it on, and Dua Lipa looks like she's definitely miming every word. Turn it off. Don't bother coming next time.
That's one opinion. How did anyone else?
You would have to pay me so much money to go to Glastonbury that I know this will never be a problem in my life.
You are honestly... Glastonbury... Has anyone else been to Glastonbury? Has anyone been to Glastonbury?
I won't be going now.
Apart from me.
Certainly not.
No. Glastonbury I still remember Glastonbury 2016. I saw Coldplay, I saw Adele, I saw U2.
And
It was the best weekend. It was Brexit as well. I was one of the happiest people at that festival because of Brexit. And
Were you in the VIP suite, Albie?
No, I was in a normal tent.
Oh my God.
A normal hotel down the road.
Time, and I just think you're being...
Normal Four Seasons hotel.
You're being so just grim with this whole thing.
There's a picture of these people, of the attendees, of the dinghy for people crossing the channel and pushing it through the crowd.
170,000 people at that festival.
That's mad.
You found one thing that irritated you.
Imagine how smelly it is.
What have you got?
Sounds like you weren't invited. Mine is that today it's Britain's biggest Pride in London, and Barcelona Football Club put out a tweet saying Happy Pride 2024. But they did it from their Arabic account. Now, brands are often accused of only doing this to sort of Western countries that already don't have a problem with this. They got lots of responses. Somebody said you need God. Someone said they're immoral and lowly. Someone said they need to ask God for... Oh, no, those were tweets to me. Now, what do you think, Darren? Do you think that they should be praised for the fact that they put it out to the rest of the world, and that brands are quite hypocritical about this rainbow washing, as some people call it?
Well, I mean, my football club was bought by Saudi Arabia, and
so you daren't criticise?
No, well, no, I'm very much willing to criticise, but I think fair enough. I applaud that, actually. I think it's laudable to actually put that out.
I think it was probably a mistake.
Well, some social media guy's just been sacked. But look,
beheaded.
I actually, to be honest with you, I think that these sort of conversations are conversations that we're going to be having more and more, because we've seen in this election even, right, debates around what... different people with different views from different cultures.
I think the rainbow has been stolen from children. So I'm completely against.
Well, it's not a rainbow anymore, is it? It's got a triangle.
No, it's an oppressive symbol of ideology now, isn't it? It's not even a rainbow. It is.
Alex,
it is. What does it even mean? Nobody knows what it means.
You don't half talk some arrant nonsense sometimes.
I think it is.
Where does it come from?
OK.
Well, that flag, no one bloody knows.
Hey, this isn't loose women here. Still ahead, though, right? You're going to have, you wonderful viewers are going to have the chance to take control, and no topics are off limits as we play Ask the Five. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters, and it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been
Come on,
cancelled.
see ya.
There's the door.
There we
But
go.
yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
Surprised by that.
Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.
This survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want three things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner, we stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us.
The People's Channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics and all your questions, which we are going to answer now, because it's time for this. Oh dear, let's have a look at what you've got for us this week. Michaela's written in and she says, "Hi Five, I'm a massive Swiftie." That, for those that don't know, that's a Taylor Swift fan. "So it's a shame she's not at Glastonbury this year. Who would be your dream Glastonbury headliner?" Benjamin Butterworth's going to say himself.
Well, it would be Taylor Swift. I think that's the honest answer. I adore Shania Twain, and she will be playing the Legend stage, I think it's called, during this Glastonbury, so I can't wait to watch that one on telly.
To be honest, I'm going to say nobody, because I don't... My idea of a good time is not squelching around in the mud.
Watch it on television,
with a load
Darren.
of lefties. I'd watch some performers, yeah.
Yeah, who would you love to see?
I really like Madonna, which isn't going to do this show.
What a surprise.
No. Yeah, we're making
Why'd you like Madonna, Darren?
Sound like the Soho Five and not the Saturday Five.
I know, but I'd say Kylie Minogue.
Kylie Minogue. Now it's getting gayer.
well, let me break them all. Coldplay, which you are headlining, would be my act to watch. I would love to watch them live.
I saw Coldplay at Glastonbury. They were brilliant.
Yeah.
I would pick Beyonce, though.
Do you not find Coldplay a bit depressing?
No.
No.
They honestly put on such a great show. There are lights. They have these light wristbands that all light up. It's honestly... Whoever is at Glastonbury to watch Coldplay tonight, whenever they're performing, you're going to have a great time.
I noticed no one said Elton John.
Well, I've seen him live as well, actually.
He did it last year, was exceptional.
Yeah.
You know, he really was.
Exceptionally bad.
He actually was, to be fair. Right, here's this the one from Jamie. Jamie says, "England footballer Anthony Gordon got injured crashing his electric bike this week. Have any of you lot injured yourselves in any foolhardy ways?" He did say he's going to get back on the bike, by the way, because he said it was an electric bike and the Europeans apparently do the brake on the other side, so he thought he was pressing the brakes and he actually sped up and went over the handlebars.
Funnily enough, I've had exactly the same accident. I had the exact same accident in Madrid in Spain. Can you believe that? There you go.
And during COVID, I learned how to ride a penny farthing. And then I was riding the penny farthing up the Mall with a photographer for a newspaper article. And then a penny farthing is a massive wheel at the front and a small one at the back, and you have to climb backwards, which is rather difficult. I ripped my leg, ended up on crutches, developed cellulitis, and then ended up on Have I Got News for You for falling off a penny farthing in front of Buckingham Palace.
He'll do anything for fame, won't he?
Won't do that.
I did once trip over a paving stone whilst holding a bag of wine and a tree in the other hand. So didn't put my hands down to stop the fall and shattered my kneecap.
That was a difficult brunch. But did the glass hurt you? The glass?
No, I saved the wine. Obviously.
Oh, God.
I'm not after my own heart.
I once was squatting at the gym and I squatted
I have no idea where that was
too
going.
deep and I gave myself a labral tear, which is a tear in the cartilage in your hip joint. And I was in pain for about 5 years and actually had to have a hip operation just before COVID.
All right, OK. I fell down a mountain in South Africa once and apparently let out a Geordie screech, which was...
Can you do it now?
So,
mountain, you mean small hill.
Right, next this one... No, it was actually a mountain, I promise. Next, this one from Keith. Keith says, "New balls, please." I beg your pardon. "Forget the general election. I'm looking to watch... Oh, right, Wimbledon. I'm looking forward to watching Wimbledon over the next couple of weeks. Who do you think will win the men's and women's singles titles?" Well, I have no idea.
I think Djokovic looks likely to... He's been playing pretty on form.
Right.
The women's, I'm not sure.
OK,
It won't be Emma Raducanu. Can I do that?
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much to our lovely guests tonight and beautiful panel, the wonderful Dr. Renee and the delightful Alex Armstrong. Meanwhile, Avril says, "Love the Saturday Five. Benjamin drives me crazy with his views, but I still like him. I love Albie's voice, speaking voice and his smart attire. Carol is less keen on Benjamin and says she calls him Benjamin Buttocks." Next up, it's Leo Kirst. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
That warm
feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
You're joking. Really? Seriously? It's not a wine, what is it?
Oh, slippy neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this. That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon. Thank you.
For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Hello there, coming up in the Saturday Night Showdown, all the craziest stories of the week, including Biden went head-to-head with Trump in an absolute car crash of a debate. Who is making Biden go through with this? It's starting to look like elder abuse. We've got the worst bits and what happened after the event. And David Tennant picked up an award for being a trans ally and standing up for women like me. And he used the event to have a go at Kemi Badenoch. Why is David clinging on so hard to the wreckage of gender ideology? Well, stay tuned and I'll tell you. And a Reform candidate who was caught in a sting by Channel 4 saying naughty things has been revealed to be an actor who boasts of doing a range of voices, including rough voice, which it looks like he was using